Hello and welcome back to the She Gallery Show. Thank you for being with us, and we welcome Artistic back. Thank you for being with us, Artistic.
Yes.
And you are with us also live, and that means that you can call us throughout the segment at 312-738-1060. That phone number can be found at the bottom of the screen throughout the segment. And please remember that you can also visit us on our website at sharinghisenergygallery.net. So we are still celebrating Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month. And today we are announcing a museum that actually launched last year in July. And we're going to learn all about that with Artistic. But before we jump into that, we want to remind you that Artistic was with us. If we could have the web PC on. If you go to Can TV and you go to season 6, you can see that we closed out the season with Artistic, so please visit us on our website. You can always check out the archives for everybody that we have interviewed and connect with the artists. So we can recap with Artistic for September 30th, 2019. That was season 6, and we are now in season 12, 6 seasons later. Wow. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes.
So that was, if you want to, we can show some images. Thank you, Omari. Omari's here with us at Can TV, our tech engineer. Here we have our announcement for today's segment. Darrell Artistic Roberts, part of Chi-Rock Nation, which was established in 1985. And again, we are celebrating July as the Hip Hop Month. We'll learn a little bit more about how that happened. And here we have Artistic, who has a long history with Can TV. He was Chi-Rock Nation, were the artists that curated or created the mural at Green Street. So here we are. Do you remember what year this was?
This was 1993.
1993. Yeah, let's take a look at some more images. That's part of that mural.
Yes.
Here we have the First Amendment, We the People, so important. And here we have some of our Can TV staff interviewing the muralist, including you, to the far right. Awesome. Let's look at some more images. Here we celebrated hip-hop elements at 1213 Art Center. And this was some of the performers and participants that were there. We got Artistic showing some love there. That was earlier this year in May. Thank you, 1213 Art Center. And here we have some of the images from the museum. So as we're looking at these these images, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how this came about?
Yeah, so myself and my partner, Kingdom Brock, and another gentleman named Brian Gorman, we occupy the space here. And, we kind of just vibed together to see what we were going to do in terms of, because it was all that was just empty space, most of it was. And we started just going into our archives, getting some of these images out and artifacts and suggesting that people donate. And, as we was getting what we had, we just started, putting stuff in frames. And this year we actually made sure that everything was in a frame. Last year we didn't have all the pieces in frames, but this year we tried to make sure all of the pieces were framed. So it's definitely looking gallery-like now. That's the front entrance of the door. We put the 2 signs up so that people could recognize it and know that this was it. It's a Greystone residential structure.
So Chicago.
Yeah. So, it's right there on 45th and Indiana. And, people can see that before they even get to the door. So they know that that's the museum.
Awesome. Let's take a look at some more images.
So this is, we have the first level and the second level that we're showcasing the exhibit. And this is the second room, which would kind of be like the dining room area. There's 3 rooms on the first floor. So this is actually the third room on the first floor. And this houses the MCs, the DJs, and the graffiti artists, all in that one room. And then we also have a display case. And there are some of Warp's carvings right over there to the left.
Yeah, you guys may remember Family Resemblance, the evolution of Chicago-style graffiti. There we see some Take-Two pieces that were showcased at that exhibit. And like he mentioned, Warp's pieces. And we'll talk a little bit more about Warp's work in a second.
And as a matter of fact, if we could go right back to that graffiti poster, actually my poster that I had gotten off of the CTA train back in the 80s. I don't know what happened to it. So this is actually a printed copy from my brother East.
Oh.
So that's his version of the poster where he tagged on it and everything.
That's
and
dope.
I just made a print of it and we put it in a frame.
Beautiful. Report vandals now.
And then this is our Soul Train wall here. So we kind of highlight the significance of why Chicago hip hop is what it is. And we had a big dance era because of Soul Train starting here in Chicago. So we wanted to highlight that, you know, with Shabba-Doo at the top and
dope.
his sister Fawn Keonis to the right there. And then, you know, of course, Don Cornelius was the main man behind Soul Train, but he had a lot of help as well. So this kind of highlights and tells the story of Soul Train's history.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And then that's our logo.
Yeah, and we see the elements of the hip hop over the stars, the Chicago stars.
Yeah, and these are two pieces of clothing, a pair of jeans and a shirt that was painted by Diz One from the Puma crew. Nice. And it was to honor our brother, our fallen legend, S.H.E. He was also a Puma member.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then that's just a promotional piece with the flyers, just some images from the actual museum over the past year.
Nice. Very, very nice.
Thank you. This piece here is kind of highlighting the events. So when you go there, we can tell you the stories and what these images and flyers represent in terms of the events. And everybody that comes in there have their own ideas if they went to the event, but we just try to break it down to kind of give people a fuller scope of why the significance of that event was even on the wall.
Very cool.
And then this is a mural that I'm standing in front of along the staircase. And it was painted by one of our artists, OG Mad. And, you know, a lot of people like to stand in front of it and take pictures.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we have some actual artifacts on display, some of the actual tools that people in practicing the elements use. So this is a turntable, and of course we put the little spin mat on there that says Chicago to let you know that, hey, you know, Chicago hip hop.
Nice.
And then this is myself. That's next to me in the middle. That's Brian Gorman, and then Kingdom Rock on the other end.
All right, these are the founders.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
This is our little display case right here, and you know, we little items that we don't want people to kind of mess with, we put in here so they could just look at. Mm-hmm. You know.
I love how like it's in a china cabinet.
Yeah.
You know, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing these images with us. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a little bit about how this took place. First, we want to show you guys that this is Chicago, a piece. We saw some of Warp's work earlier, and this was made from Warp just now. Artistic picked it up so that he could have it at the museum like this weekend. So I was just sharing with him that I have a couple of pieces from Warp that we're going to continue to show, and I was like, man, we got to invite Warp back on the segment so he could join us live, because the last time that we interviewed him here, he was with you via Zoom. And I thought maybe we should bring him on and show some of his sculptures, and then Artistic shows up with one of his sculptures, and we had no idea. So it's such a great honor. Last month, She Gallery, we were at Hairpin Art Center, or last weekend, we were at Hairpin Art Center, and they're continuing to celebrate Hip Hop Month. And they have some amazing articles and artifacts from hip hop's culture, just as they have at the museum. And it really takes us back to how special Chicago is, right? Yes. Like, yes. I love that this museum is housed at a house. And it's like, it really makes you feel like you're at home, and the way that you enter into these doors and the way that you guys have presented these, like, in the china cabinet, you know, that's all so special.
Thank you.
And I was talking with Artistic, and I said, why is Chicago celebrating Hip Hop Month in July? Why July? Can you talk to us about how that took place?
Well, I know Amina Hawkins and her husband, Chris, and a couple of other people were involved in doing the fundamental groundwork with the paperwork and drafting up the proposal to take down to City Hall so that it could get drafted and adopted as a resolution for stamping July as Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month. So
That's
that's
legit.
yeah. So that took place in 2003.
Beautiful. Thank you, Amina. And you guys may remember that when Trickster co-hosted with us, he hosted all of season 5. He had Amina Hawkins here with us. So please visit our website again and check out that segment with Amina and learn more about the amazing things that she's done. She was also with Age 13 in Africa, and Age 13 talks about that in her segment. So that's something that they took very serious. These are people that are cultivating culture and that are taking this culture and way of living very serious. You dedicate a lot of time to your community when you do this. We learned from our last previous segment with Artistic that at some point he was like, no, I'm going to leave the scene for a while. Even though you've been in the scene since the early 80s, the community pulled you back. And your wife encouraged you, and you had so much support to do that. And that's what I continue to see happening with this hip-hop community, is that it is a true way of living. There's no separation, and it's something that should be celebrated. So this museum, it opened up last year, and this was right after COVID. I think that a lot of people were kind of shut down during COVID, but at the same time, those creative seeds, I guess, were also being planted, and a lot of people started taking themselves more serious. There was a lot more entrepreneurship going on. And this space, you mentioned Kingdom and Brian, they looked at this space and they were trying to get a space for creatives. And when they showed you this space, you said, you know, we should use this space as an exhibit space.
Yeah.
So we're talking about gallery versus museum. And it started up as a pop-up show.
Yeah.
But you guys listened to the people, to the community, and then it became a museum, right? So can you talk to us about what COVID was like for you? Since you were last in our segment, what's been up with you?
Well, it was a challenge because, let's see, I was always working on projects no matter what before COVID. You know, COVID didn't really slow that down, but it did slow down us doing events, you know, because we couldn't actually go do events. But, you know, in terms of me personally, you know, I mean, I continue to, you know, work, you know, and be creative, working on my book still, The Real Deal on Chicago Hip Hop. We have also a broadcast show, RYC Live, so I do that every week. So we're constantly connecting the elements of hip hop here in Chicago together to tell our story, to see it on the timeline. And I think COVID, some people it probably stopped because, you know, if they work in a regular job, you know, unfortunately I was able to continue to work at my job. We did have a little incident because of the looting, and they broke into our store, and we had to have it shut down for about, I think it was maybe about a month and a half, and then to get the store back together. But then I went right back to work. So when we kind of came together to do the museum, it was kind of still during COVID, because I remember when we first opened up in July, we still were kind of wearing the mask, had hand sanitizer out so that people could, you know, keep the germs free and everything. And we was trying to not get too close to everybody, you know, so, you know, and spraying disinfectant and things of that nature. But at some point, you know, we had to take a leap of faith to do it and see what would happen once people came. And people were totally amazed because people couldn't believe that Chicago had this much history.
That's beautiful. RYC, Rep Your City, is on every Friday night at 8 p.m. and it is part of Chi Rock Nation, a nonprofit here in Chicago. We encourage you to learn more about Chi Rock Nation visiting their website at chirocknation.org.
Yes.
Awesome. Artistic, can I ask you, you've been featured now in the Reader, you've been with us, you've been all over the place in the city. The city's recognizing you as kind of like one of the leaders for Chicago's culture, right, of hip-hop. Why is hip-hop so important to you?
Well, I think it helps me feel alive, for me personally. And then I also see it the same for many others. I think for many people, it's a testimony to you being alive. You know, we as humans, we like to be acknowledged and shown, you know, like, hey, you know, I'm proud of you for doing that. You know, if you're an artist or whatever it is that you do in your craft and somebody acknowledges you for it, that makes you feel good. So, you know, even if you don't become, quote unquote, famous to where you're making a lot of money, just being acknowledged and shown gratitude on behalf of your services and whatever it is that you do it goes a long way. So I think for many of us, including myself, hip hop has made us feel alive, and I think to this day, it's no different from what it was when I first got into it. It made me want to be a part of it because it felt, I could feel the pulse on it.
It has its own pulse. That's beautiful. I love how you said that.
Yeah.
Now, when we celebrated Family Resemblance, the evolution of Chicago-style graffiti, we had 2 panel discussions. We thank Artistic for showing his support, also showing his support last week with the panelists, and always showing support to the community as much as he can. One of the things that has been brought up to us personally, people continue to ask us, why is Chicago graffiti or Chicago hip-hop? What makes graffiti or hip-hop different here than in other states or in other parts of the world? What do you think that is? Why does the Midwest carry hip-hop in a different way, if it does to you?
Well, I think because we're kind of like, there was a magazine that came out in the 90s called Caught in the Middle. And it's a perfect title because that's exactly what it is. I mean, we're in the middle of the country, so to speak, so we can look over to the East Coast over at New York, and then we can look over to the West Coast and look at California and the surrounding areas, and then we're right in the middle, so to speak. So we get a chance to kind of like analyze both parts of the country more, unlike any other person. Like if you're on the West Coast, you kind of only can see what you from the West Coast, and then everything else is, to the opposite direction of you. And whereas we kind of like, we can kind of look to our right and our left and see both things kind of like equivalently. And I think that's what makes us unique, being stuck in the Midwest. It gives us a perspective that no other city has in the country.
Yeah, and I think we carry a lot of really great history. As you mentioned, Soul Train. Mm-hmm. Soul Train started here. We learned that the spray can was actually invented here. And so many different things that when we continue to have these conversations, these panels, we learn more about this as a culture, and whether it's gained full respect or not, maybe it's something that we are only looking for to gain from the community, but I think that other people are now becoming more curious about it. Mm-hmm. And now as adults, we're working harder to archive. I asked Breaker Ray, why do you think that this is happening? Why do you think that there's more interest in the hip-hop community and graffiti? He's like, we're getting old. That's what's happening. So when we're talking about, like Family Resemblance, we were talking to first-generation writers. So we're talking about people that are still here that started these movements. There's no one before. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, there's anybody that is being... that we're able to get these lessons from unless we're talking to somebody in New York, which we have. We thank Scheme and other pioneers that have talked with us, but they've also showed us the ropes. Yes. Peely, rest in peace. So there's a lot that we're always constantly looking up to, and a lot that we also have to teach. Yes. So it seems to be a little bit of a social responsibility.
Yeah.
How do you think that the youth is responding?
Well, I think that could be all over the place. I was just talking to someone recently about hip hop today, and the thing is that younger people think and do things a little differently than older people, and that's just the way life is in general. But I do think that hip hop is free, it's organic. You can't contain it, so to speak. You can't put it in a box and put a lid on it and lock it, because it can't do what it's supposed to do when it's contained. So hip-hop has got to be free and expressive. And I think kids today, they feel like, well, the guys back in the day, they did it like this, but we are doing it like this. And, and so that makes it automatically different. We didn't have social media or internet sites to go to back when we were doing it in the 80s, but the young people today have that, so they can go to their Instagram and their Twitter accounts and their YouTube channels and Facebook pages and things of that nature, and go what they call viral in a matter of minutes, just from doing a live video or something. Well, we didn't have that. We used to have to create flyers and go out and literally pave the ground, passing out flyers and putting up posters. And that may have taken weeks to try to circulate around the city for people to even know what we were doing.
Yeah. But somehow people knew.
Yeah.
And I think that kept things really underground. We were talking about during the panel discussion about checkpoints, because this movement was a little bit, sometimes illegal. you always kind of had to protect each other. And that still kind of happens today, that it seems like, oh, well, if you know somebody that knows somebody, then okay, you're cool. But there's sometimes that it's like, not that you're not cool, but that maybe you're just not trustworthy to protect this culture. And that's something that I've seen, that people really protect the culture. They really care for the culture, and that means not selling out. What's not selling out? I think that hip hop is something we talked about with Seven and L, that it's something that everybody wants. You see it commercialized a lot, and I think that that's why people are constantly working to protect it. And that's because of its true elements that are very important back to unity. So when you're talking about passing out flyers and how people go live stream, it's a lot easier to just go out there and say, I'm real. Well, what's real? So how have you been able to manage to I guess, protect hip hop in that sense?
Well, that's a good question, because I feel like we should be protecting this because we are a part of creating it. So like, I didn't come up around the blues or the jazz movements, so I can't speak as much about them because I didn't live that. But hip hop, we pioneered it. So we were in the trenches helping to create and develop this movement. So why not, now that we're getting up in age, why not protect it and preserve it to where we can share it and pass it down to other generations? So as an older person now, we have all the time in the world to think about what we need to do to preserve and spread this so that if in the event something should happen to us at this moment, somebody else can come pick up and say, oh, let me go to the museum, or oh, let me go over here, let me go, they got this, they got that. And then all of these pebbles, so to speak, have been laid out and left as a trail and a timeline for people to come behind and look at and learn. Whereas if we don't put the work in right now, generations will come and they'll never know what the history is, and then they won't really be able to progressively move forward with what they're doing in connection with what we did. So that's what I think, why it's so important to protect it, because at some point you're not going to be able to do that, but if you put the work in now, it's going to take care of itself.
You're gonna make me cry. That's so true. When I growing up with graffiti writers, and I constantly pushed for them to take themselves more serious, and it's like, writers only write for other writers. But I realized how fast we live and how fast life goes, and how many of us leave at a very early age. I lost so many people at such early ages that it seemed like, what happens after that? We remain with these essences, as we talked about on Monday. Like right now we're seeing Peely's mom all over the place, and she's like living for her son or through her son, continuing that. And like, it's usually the kids that outlive their parents.
Yes.
And she's doing it the other way. So I think that what you're doing with the museum is so important. I really salute you.
Thank you.
And I really encourage all of Chicago to check out the museum, to support it. And I really hope to see it grow.
One thing, before I forget, I think that's amazing. Our peers enjoy it, but the kids, I think, is really, that's the spectacular part of the experience, because the kids have come in and say, what is a cassette tape? Wow. Or what is this round thing, that what we call vinyl or records? They have no clue because their technology is different. What is this, a CD? What is that? So it's kind of funny, but it's not, because they don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
they're serious. And we laugh.
So like, I still had my boombox from 1984 on display there, and I was a teenager when I got that, so I was able to show people, like, this is how we played our music on a device like this, and the kids are looking like, wow,
mixtapes.
Yeah. So it's important to really just show, just like if we go back in time with people much older than us and they start talking about what it was like when they were younger, you kind of like, wow, that's before my time. All you can do is sit and listen and hear them out. So it's the same now with us, with young people coming up today. They kind of looking foreign to them, but at the same time, if you educate them on it, they'll begin to understand the connection.
Very cool. So when people visit the museum, are there tours, or do they just kind of like, Yeah, can you talk to us about the schedule and how people can connect?
So we do group tours and we do private tours. So and right now it's by scheduling.
Okay.
So we don't actually have a set scheduled time of hours through the week and the weekend because we all have different work schedules and other things in our lives going on. So we just try to get with people in general and set an appointment with them and say, hey, you can, if you like to come on a Friday or a Saturday or whatever day we choose to pick and a specific time that's both mutual, we can do that and go down there and give a tour. And we'll do the whole first floor and the second floor. We have tons of stuff to see. We put together some videos and documentary clips and things of that nature to kind of show on the widescreen TV. And we have other little events, like we just had a hip-hop play take place about 2 weeks ago. And that was real nice. So, so different activities, showcase is being showcased at the museum. And then also, like I said, we are encouraging people to bring or donate items to add to the museum so the collection can continue to grow.
Beautiful. Make sure you guys stay in touch. Artistic, we have a few minutes left. I'm going to ask you to share with the audience any words of advice or anything else that you want to say. But before that, I want to ask you, well, again, thank you so much for being with us, to sharing this knowledge, for taking your time. But I want to ask you where you see this museum growing to.
Well, it kind of reminds me of how it was for me going to the library years ago as a kid. And I would go into this massive building and see all of these books. And it was just tons of history, right? People that's no longer alive, you're reading about them and you're looking at pictures and all of that. So, I used to always be like, wow, what would that be like to create an atmosphere for people to come learn and get educated? And now I'm in that mode where it's just like, wow, this is it. We got to create our own library, basically. And
it's an initiative. It's extremely historical.
Yeah. Put
Super.
the books, put the videos, put the pictures. Put all of that stuff in the storehouse, so that people coming along later can come and view and get educated. Because if we don't put it out, nobody can learn. Your word of mouth is only gonna go so far. So you have to put something in physical form to leave behind, whether it's a book, a video, something, a physical rock, you know what I'm saying, a stone or whatever, so people could be like, oh, he was here, it's evidence that, people say, hey, people used to write on the inside the cave or whatever. Well, how would you know if you didn't come and actually look at the stone that they wrote on?
That's so dope. It's like really leaving a mark. And you mentioned something about how this new generation, everybody goes online and everything's live streamed. I think that what you are doing with this museum is kind of taking it back. We're talking about the paper flyers and the way that people communicated. I think this is another way that people can continue to have these conversations that are somewhat underground but open to the public, right?
Yes. And I think at the end of the day, people can connect the dots. You can look at something that's old and something that's new and see how it connects. It's just like a parent and a child. The parent is older and the child is younger, but there's still a connection. You know what I mean? And as long as the parent communicates with the child and the child communicates with the parent, they have a good camaraderie or a good family bond, so to speak. And then when that child gets a little older, he's going to have his own kids, and it just continues.
Yeah, generations evolving.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with as we're wrapping up the segment?
I'd just like to say, continue to do what you love. Be passionate about it. Make sure that it tugs you at the heart. And when you go to sleep, lay your head down at night, your mind is constantly racing with the ideas or the thoughts behind what it is you love. And don't let nobody, steer you in the wrong direction or steer you to the left or to the right and try to talk to you negatively about doing what it is that you love. When I was coming up in the 80s, people didn't like graffiti, they didn't like breakdance, they didn't like any of the elements of hip-hop because it was new, and they felt that it wasn't going to last. But they can't say that today because it's still here. 2022 is still here. And it was something that we all loved, and I think that's why it's so important for you to hold on to your dreams, hold on to the things you love. And I encourage anybody, whatever it is, make it happen. Just continue to stick with it and work hard.
Thank you, Artistic. I want to remind the audience to, again, continue to support Chi-Rock Nation. everybody that is out there working really hard to preserve this history. And we want to again thank Newberry Library, who is hosting 500 Years of Writing and has invited She Gallery to come out and do the graffiti program for them this fall. We will be out there with Easton Pengo and myself. We'll continue to help educate the public. And thank you guys all for your support. Thanks, Can TV. And we'll see you guys again next week.